Good day, flight simmers. We're going to do a flight today with the Beechcraft King Air 350i, real-time, real weather. And here's Hurricane Lee off the coast there, so you can see Microsoft's doing a good job on the weather. All right, let's take a look at the aircraft. What we're going to do is we're going to create a failure so we can see if we can fly this aircraft on one engine. So I'm just going to click here under failures, and I turned on enable failure, complete failure, and you have to arm it, and then you can set the time. So somewhere in between 15 to 20 minutes into the flight, we should get a warning that one of our engines has failed. Not sure which one, could be random. So that's done. Let's go back to this window, and now I'm going to use a little Navmap. Now if you want to skip the creation of the flight plan, you can. If you're already familiar, you can just go forward in your video that you're watching, and you won't have to go through this if you already know how to do it. So we're going to go from South Bend to Chicago Midway, Kilo Mike Delta Whiskey. So in order to do that with a little Navmap, I'll just close this window so you can see things a little better. I'm going to hold my mouse over the airport, and with that you can see the NOAA station information, and you can see the wind is blowing out of 120 at 3 knots, so very mild. Preferred runway is runway 9, left or right. So what I can do is zoom in there, and I can click there to see if any weather information is coming up, and there isn't. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to select that airport as our departure, and it should start building a flight plan for us. Okay, and now I'm going to select the runway for departure. So we'll just go with runway 9 right. So you can just click there and go 9 right. Now we're flying out in this direction, and so the aircraft's going to have to turn and go back. So I'm not going to do any SIDS for that, for departure procedures. We should be okay with that. So here's Chicago Midway International, and we're going to fly into runway 31C, which is an ILS runway 109.90 megahertz. And there's your magnetic declination, and the range of the localizer is 27 nautical miles. So if I right click on this, I can set that as my destination. And then if I right click again, I should be able to select a runway, and 31C, it's ILS, it's lighted. You could do this at night very easily. And now I want to do a standard approach procedure. So you see, you can use this to select your departure and arrival runways, or you can actually just use the airport itself. So I am going to right click on that and show arrival procedures. Now what I have to do is pick an approach. This one's not going to work. It's coming from the opposite direction. We want to come in this way. So that's because it's for 13C. So we need 31. So these are the stars, standard arrival. You can select one if you want, but because it's a really short flight, I'm just going to go down and pick an approach. So if I click on this one, you can see that's RNAV for 31, and if I click on this one, you can see it's an ILS for 31C. So 31, 31C, HOBEL. So that's a waypoint, and that's going to give us an approach. See, if I back off, you can see. So we'll now be flying in. So I'm going to insert that. So you see now we're flying to that waypoint direct. So the other thing I want to show you is I'm going to fly at 5,000 feet, or well, let's go an even number. We're flying west, so how about I go 6,000. And now I'm going to see if I can calculate a flight plan using that. So click these boxes. There's the you can hit adjust, and if it doesn't like that altitude, it will adjust it to an acceptable one. I'm going to say calculate, and now it has calculated a flight plan and some waypoints, as you can see. I'm going to shut this down. Now, if we are linked to Microsoft Flight Sim, our aircraft's going to show up wherever it is here. It's going to show up on the thing. So, Tools, Connect to Microsoft Flight Sim, Connect. And you have to have this clicked on. So now I have to take this flight plan and export it. So that's what it looks like. I'm not sure if it'll go exactly that route when you import it. I mean, it should work, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do is just save that. You just click on here, Save Flight Plan, and it will save it to whatever you have for a folder you've created. Now, Little Navmap is free software you can download. Just Google it and you'll get the site. It's a free download, and with tools, like I said, you connect, and also for your options, it asks you in your cache files to download a zip file and then create a directory for it, and then select that directory rather than use online elevation data, which can cause some errors. Alrighty, so we need to export that flight plan to Microsoft Flight Sim, and it's asking me if I want to pick a gate or probably a parking spot. The thing is, if you click those, it'll show you them, but where I've got an engine failure, if you're sitting at a gate and you have to go through the entire startup, this engine might fail before you take off, and then you'd have to abort your flight. So that's why I'm just going to take off from the runway itself. So just hit save if you want to do that. So now it's going to save it to this folder that I've created. So I'm going to say save. So now we need to go back to Microsoft Flight Sim. So here's where you'll join me if you didn't watch the whole the Navmap thing. So now we want to go to Space More, and we want to do load, and we want to load from this PC, and we want to go looking for that directory where we saved it. So wherever you create your folder, go to that location. So mine's on F, and should be under Microsoft Flight Plans here. So there it is, and it even puts a little Navmap symbol beside it, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to open that up. So there's the flight plan. So you can see we're taking off, turning, coming back and around. And so somewhere in here we should have an engine failure before we arrive. So let's see what happens here. So I'm going to hit fly. There's all, by the way, there's all our waypoints. And we're using real time, real weather. You can click on your nav log here to see your 6,000 feet, your elevations throughout the flight. Hopefully they get entered into the flight plan. And so you just want to check and make sure everything seems okay, and it does. So I'm going to hit fly. So I'm going to have to do a few things sitting on the runway here to get the aircraft ready for takeoff. I'll also provide there's 3 checklists for this aircraft provided by Microsoft Flight Sim, and they've already been done if you're sitting ready to take off. So your before start, your startup of your engines, and after startup, well, that'll all have been completed, and I'll show you that. So here we are at South Bend International, ready to go. There's our beautiful King Air, $8 million plane.
Cleared for takeoff runway 9 right, Nasair 616.
So if you want to overhaul the engines, they have to be done at 3,600 hours. And they're 400 grand, 400K each side. So if you want new props, which usually is done, and new spinners, plus the avionics Garmin G1000 update, that's going to cost you $1.7 million. So you can see why sometimes an engine will fail, because you got to have a lot of bucks to keep this plane in good shape. But it's a very reliable plane. So this one's equipped with the G1000 NXI, and that runs you around 400 grand, in case you're wondering, just for the avionics system. So we're ready to fly, and we've got a caution here, a warning. That's because I have the parking brake on. So I'm just going to turn that off. So we're cleared for takeoff. And here's your checklist I was telling you about. So these are all completed. So you can see this stuff you would do at the gate. And then these are all completed. So your engines are all running. And you can auto-complete these. You can reset the page and go through it again. So if you did lose an engine in flight, you can actually pause if you want the program. And you can reset, and it's sort of like a co-pilot going through a checklist to try and restart the engines. And you can probably get your engines restarted. But if you do the complete failure, you're probably not going to be able to restart the engine. But let's just say for some reason an engine did shut down on you, and it maybe because you put your fuel cutoff lever down, then you could restart it. So, and then there's after starting the engine. So that's been all completed for us. So what I want to do here, you can see the autopilot's flashing. I want to go to altitude and set our altitude to 6,000 just by scrolling on the altitude. So,
Tree 61 contact South Bend departure on 124.1. Good day.
so this whole area is the automatic flight control system, and it has various buttons. Flight director, autopilot, yaw damper, altitude, hold, approach button, heading, nav, flight level, and vertical speed, up or down, VNav, another flight director button. So if you turn this one on, this one will show off, but it'll be on. And then there's your CRS settings for your VORs. Alright, so let's go to the primary flight display. Control 1 will bring that up. So this is your primary flight display with your speed gauge indicator and your altitude indicator. There's your barometric pressure. You can press B Bravo on your keyboard and it will automatically set that. And you see it just changed? That's because we're using real time, real weather. So here's your compass, and this is on GPS right now. There's your heading bug. Now if you want to line your heading bug up, I'm just going to go up here to Control 2 to bring up this keyboard. And if you want to line your heading bug up with the direction nose of your aircraft, you see that little symbol there? You just right click on that and you'll see the heading bug popped up, and it lines you up with the runway. Let's go back to primary flight display. Now it's a touch screen, this Garmin G1000, I think this is the NXI. So here's where you change your VOR 1 and 2 and GPS. So you want it on GPS, and I'm just going to click that again, and now hit split screen and then hit flight plan. And this is how you set your nav frequency for the runway we are going to, which is runway 31C, and if you remember, it's 10990 megahertz. So you're going to transfer that, not enter, transfer. It's now the active frequency. So that's set up. We're ready to go for our approach, ILS. All right, I'm going to click that again. And we're back to this screen. I'm going to check our flight plan. So if I go down here, I can see there's our waypoints and our elevations, and then here's our approach waypoints. So we'll see how this works. There's one called hills here, which I don't think we requested. I don't see it. I don't see hills in there, so I don't know if that's going to cause us an issue, but there's what happens sometimes is Microsoft Flight Sim will actually create a little approach of its own by adding some waypoints. So that doesn't look too serious, but I'll keep an eye on that just in case it goes astray and I have to fly direct to one of these waypoints. Alright, so there's our flight plan there, so we can go Control 3 and get to our multifunctional display screen. Now you see here's our engines. Everything looks good, and the park and brake is set and the P-dots aren't on. So I can go down here and turn on the P-dots. Now that's if you're flying in cold weather or higher elevations. You just want to make sure they're heated. Those are instruments, sensitive instruments on the outside of the aircraft, which send information inside on our airspeed, our attitude, and I believe our pitch as well. So this looks good. So let's see, Control 1 again. See if there's anything else we need to do. Well, let's set our vertical speed by going up here. Control 2 and this automatic flight control system. We can turn on the vertical speed and we can say up. Now you see we're going up at 400, and I'll do 1,000 feet per minute. Alright, so we are now ready to go. I'm going to show you outside that we have our flaps down, and I have a heads-up display turned on, which is done in your settings under options, assistance, and then you just heads-up display, just turn it on, and you can select minimum. It'll be down here, smaller bars, or you can have maximum, which I have on. So this allows you to be outside the aircraft and still monitor what's going on. So if we have an engine failure, you should see one of these drop. Okay, it is right now. So let's take off. So we're going to have to take off that park and brake, and that warning will be gone. So full throttle. So we're going to rotate and get off when we get to rotation speed and get a good rate of climb here. And just pull back gently when you reach rotation speed. And I'll show you what it's like outside. Just going to bring up the landing gear. And I'm going to bring up the flaps. Now, G on your keyboard will bring up the landing gear, and I'm just using my joystick for the flaps. So let's go inside where it's a little quieter. So here you want to put on the flight director, the autopilot, the yaw damper, and we want to put on nav, and we should be good. So just hold your mouse over to make sure they're on.
Nasser 616 South, Bend departure altimeter 30.22 continue as planned.
So you can see the ones that are on. So everything's going good, and you can see the aircraft's turning right away to pick up the flight plan. So that's a good sign. So it's a nice day for flying the King Air in the northern United States near the Canadian border. And you can see that this aircraft really does perform well. So I am going to cut back the throttle a little bit. So Control 5 will bring up this, and you can see these are on low idle. And you can bring your props back a little bit if you want to cut back. Well, it'll help a little bit with your RPMs. So I'm going to go Control 3 and look at our engine. So our torque is pretty good. Our ITT, internal turbine temperatures, looks okay. There's our prop RPM, so that's good. Our oil pressure on both sides is 134. Oil temperature is 29. And fuel flow looks good. And there's our aircraft following its flight plan. So there's our transponder, and there is the code that's entered. That's automatically done for you. This will allow the aircraft to send out a signal. So there's the waypoint we're headed for. There's our bearing. There's our distance to that waypoint. And there's our estimated time to get there. There's our ground speed. And this is actually what we're tracking because there could be a little bit of wind. And if I bring up little Navmap and zoom in, you can see there's our aircraft, and you can see there's the wind blowing a little bit out of the north, and not very strong, only 3 to 4 knots. Now there's the information about our aircraft, and you just click on this, it'll bring that up. So there we have GC930, that's on our tail on the outside. It's a Beechcraft 350. So it gives us our speed, indicated speed, our altitude, our heading, and there's information on the aircraft. There's our flight number. We're NAS Air 616, transponder code, type of aircraft, registration, model, and wingspan. So you can see, provides some nice information. So I'll just shut that down for now. And then there is information that we use to pick some waypoints, navigational aids. So let's go back. There's a flight plan, by the way, so I can close that as well. And also I can downsize this, and then I can just move it and bring it up occasionally, and we can see how we're doing. You can zoom in and out. Now while this is up, your mouse isn't going to work here doing anything. As soon as you click on it, that'll disappear. But your keyboard, especially, if you wanted to check your barometric pressure B, it's not going to change as long as the little nav map's up. But if I click and it disappears, and now if I hit B, it didn't change because it hasn't changed. So the barometric pressure is the same. So let's take a look outside. Okay, we're doing good. The engines are both running fine right now. So I'm going to go Control 2, get up to this area here, back off, and you can hit my joystick is programmed, so you can see we just reached 6,000 feet for our altitude. My joystick's programmed, so if I click on the top button, I can get some different views. You can also hit Shift on your keyboard and your arrow keys, and you can just pan around and look at and you can hit Alt to move over, and you can actually see the back. Use your mouse, get in there a little bit to see the seating configuration. Sort of a very executive style aircraft. So I'm going to go back again so we can see the front, and what I have to do now is just line myself up a little better. There we go. Using the Alt and arrow keys. So there we go. I haven't figured out if you can open the doors on this. I don't think you can open the doors on this aircraft. And there's no keystrokes on your keyboard for doing that. So we're doing fine right now. So what I want to do is just monitor things through the checklist. So if you don't mind, I am going to just take a look at some items here. Torque, props, oil pressure, make sure we're on our flight plan, make sure the primary flight display is working fine, and checking our speed. There's our actual true airspeed, and there is our indicated airspeed on the speed indicator. And let's see, there's our altitude. It's on GPS. Everything looks fine. So the outside temperature is only 5 degrees at this altitude, so pretty cool. Getting close to freezing. 5 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Celsius, for those that aren't familiar, is a freezing point. But that's getting really close. So it's good to have the PTOTs on. I'm just going to show you by pressing Control 4 we can get to here and see this prop test. It's inoperative, so you can't test your props. And then this auto feather doesn't work either. That would be, if that was on and armed, if you have an engine failure, that prop is going to auto feather, but I'll have to do that manually. So you can see there's some other switches that are used during startup, your avionics. There's our battery, left gen, right gen. So let's go Control 1. You get the primary flight display. Control 2. That's your navigation system there, automatic navigation system. And Control 3 is your multifunctional display. Control 4 brings up what we just looked at. So you've got your landing lights here, and make sure they're all on. I'm just checking. And there's your ice protection right there. So Control 5.
Nasser 616, contact Chicago Center on 127.5.
There's our throttle, props, conditioners, pitch, aileron,
127.55 Nasser
rudder trim.
616. Chicago Center Nasser 6166,000 feet.
So this is being controlled by the autopilot. So you want to make sure these are set properly during takeoff. If you played around with that, left or right, your plane could make a sharp turn and dive into the ground. So you want to make sure that those things are set properly. Okay, Control 6. This is inoperable stuff for aesthetic reasons. Control 7. So here's our fuel. Everything's looking fine. Right and left. This is our emergency ELT switch that you can arm. In case you crash, that thing will send out a signal to help locate your aircraft. So there's your fuel. You can switch your gauges here. Auxiliary transfer. This is your fire valve breaker. But okay, so we just got a warning. Let's go back. Control 2. So let's have a look here. We've got a warning, which probably means we have an engine failure. Okay, so let's take a look at our engines. Control 3. So you can see this engine's just failed. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is feather that propeller. So Control 5. It's this engine here. So we want to feather that. And let's just go outside and have a look. There's the propeller right there. Okay, so by feathering the propeller, you can see it's lined it up perfectly. So that propeller isn't creating a drag now. If you don't feather it, it's going to keep spinning and create a drag and cause you to burn fuel and cause issues with the autopilot trying to manage the aircraft. So that's feathered. Okay. So I'm going to cut the throttle back a little bit.
Keep speed not above 240 knots. Expect ILS runway 31 center.
So I'm going to shut the fuel off for that. because it's not running.
Going to 127.8 United 1678. NASAir 616 contact.
I'm keeping an eye on that airspeed there. So
Good day.
you just go through a checklist here for failure. So you can see now these are dropping.
127.8 NASAir 616.
We've got an issue with oil pressure on that
Skywest
side.
5518 contact Chicago Center on 127.8.
So I'm
Good
going
day.
to just make sure that's down. Auto ignition left. Just make sure that's down. And left generator, put that down as well. Okay, so I think we've done what we need to do. So I'm going to acknowledge this, that we've dealt with it.
Descend and maintain 5,000 feet NASAir 616.
All right, we're going to go to 5,000 now. So now we got to see if we can land this thing without crashing. Okay, so you can see that propeller turning slowly there. Okay, 5,000. Now, I'm just going to keep flying because everything's looking okay, rather than I divert to another airport, because everything with that one engine looks good and we're close enough to where we're headed. We may as well just continue on. We're not very far. So we're descending. This is on, down, and watch your speed. But I'm going to bring up little Navmap to see where we are. Okay, so little Navmap is heading for a waypoint that's been added. That one we looked at, Hills, I think it was. So now I got to make sure that it flies to Hills and turns.
128.2 for NASAir 616.
Yeah, it's one of the things I don't like sometimes
Chicago
with little
approach NASAir
Navmap.
616 is at 5,500 feet, descending 5,000 feet.
This is probably Hills right here. So it should go to Hills and then turn. If it doesn't, I gotta fly direct to Gleam. I'm gonna have a look and see. So far so good. Now I'm just going to take a look at what they said here. It's turning now. Why, I'm not sure, but let's just wait and see what they said here. So it's still on GPS here. So you can see it's chasing that needle. So it's I'm not sure erratic, but it's adjusting. As long as it's on GPS, it's still chasing it. We seem to be okay. So we got another master warning here. Something else is on. Oh, let's have a look. Control 3. Okay. Okay, so not sure what that new one's for. I'm just going to look at our fuel. So I'm going to transfer some fuel. Looks like we've got more fuel, and that could cause an imbalance with the aircraft, and that might be why there's a warning there. So from the left to the right. Let's go control 1. Okay, so let's go back here and see if we can see what little Navmap's doing here. Okay, we seem to be flying to this waypoint here now, so we should be turning soon. And I'm going to have to get down, so we're going to have to descend. Say 2,500. And control 3. Okay, here we go. So I can back out here. Okay, we're headed to Gleam there. And at Gleam, what do we have to be at? 4,000 feet. And then 2,500. So I'm descending to 2,500 now for this waypoint. And watching your airspeed, you don't want to get it too high.
Descend and maintain 4,000 feet Nasser 616.
Okay, so we really can't hear ATC. I don't know why that happens from time to time. We're headed for that GPS needle there. We should turn when this comes over. So I'm going to have to put down the flaps and the landing gear and get my speed down, of course. You want to at least be into this white zone to put them down. Just going to show you Control 8 will bring up the overhead. So here you can put on lights if you want, wipers, floodlights. And there's your maximum knots for landing gear and flaps. Control 1. So we're turning towards the airport. I'll get my... So the trick is going to be landing on when I take it off autopilot. This thing is going to want to push to the left because the right propeller is full power and the right propeller is full power. The left propeller is on feather. So after you land, it's going to want to pull to the left too. So let's see how I do trying to land this thing. So we picked up the localizer because we had the frequency entered properly. So let's go back here. So there's the localizer, and we are getting pretty close here. So I'm going to put approach on. So I go back up here and I hit approach. Okay, so let me just back off for you so we can sort of see some stuff here. So what I'm watching is this, okay, speed's down. So I'll get my speed up. So let's have a look here. So our speed got down too low. Because that one engine is out. And I was focusing on some other issues here. So it's nice to have that stall warning.
Tower on 135.2 Nasser 616.
So I'm watching for the glide slope to come down here.
Midway
That
Tower Nasser
green
616
diamond to hit
miles
there.
southeast inbound ILS
As long as that
runway
diamond
center
is
approach.
up there, it means we're under the glide slope and we're going to intercept it. If
Clear
it's
to
down
land,
here,
runway 31
you
center
have to
Nasser
get
616.
down. So I'm going to check the barometric pressure once again and just change. You see, and it changed our altitude. So you got to have that barometric pressure set right. So now I'm going to put down some, got to watch my airspeed, but I'm going to put down the landing gear. And I'm going to cut my speed back. You want to be around 140 for your approach, and then about 110 to 100 in that zone for landing. So I'll put flaps down 20% right now, and then full flaps. You got to be careful with only one engine going. Maybe full flaps might not be a good idea. It might cause you to stall. But let's just see how we make out here. Yeah, I think I'll just do half flaps and see how the aircraft is operating. So you can see we're descending now because that diamond, we intercepted it. And I'll just show you what I'm talking about here on the little Navmap. If I bring up the elevation, you can see that we intercepted it right there. See? There's our aircraft. So I'll just close that again. So it looks like we're coming in okay. I'll have to take you outside for a look. So this thing flies pretty good on one engine. Nice to have that one extra engine in case you do have a failure. At least this aircraft can fly normally. Just going to be a little tricky landing it, that's all. So I'll take it off autopilot when we get really close. And I'm watching my speed. So now I'm going to really cut back on the speed. That sounds like the Nav1 frequency, Morse code. Okay, so I'm going to take it off autopilot. See it pull right away? Well, she's pulling. Just put full flaps down now. Alrighty. So we managed to land safely. Flaps up. I didn't use reverse thrust. Don't know if that'd be a good idea with one engine out. So it is pulling a little bit to the left. You might have noticed the frames setting. Just a little bit of an issue there when I changed views and that's because Microsoft Flight Sim is such a hog. It used up my whole C drive and I didn't have any space left, so I moved it to an external drive. I moved all of the Microsoft Flight Sim files to an external drive and then restarted Steam and set that new file location. So now my C drive is freed up and Microsoft Flight Sim seems to be working just fine. And also I moved a little Navmap there too. So let's just go up here and stop. And just be careful because it is going to pull.
118.075 for Nasser 616.
Okay, so I have those blue ribbon arrows set up. So put parking brake on. I have and do the taxi stuff. So let's go to our lights. Well, I'll just use Control 4 to get there. And so we want taxi lights on. We can turn off our landing lights now. And I'll shut those down when we get there. Strobe I don't think we need on right now. Okay, so these warnings I can shut off. And I'll bring up ATC. And I can use my joystick as well for that. And we're going to tune ground. And just ask for a request to park.
Midway ground Nasser 616 taxi to parking.
There's no sense going to a gate with this aircraft.
Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway
because you can't get a jetway or
Nasser
anything for a
616.
smaller aircraft like this. So let's just follow the blue markers. Take my parking brake off again. And away we go to our parking spot. So we're supposed to go around 20 knots for taxiing, and it's a little difficult to get this thing to taxi on one engine just because it wants to keep pulling. You can see I'm using the rudder a lot here to keep us on track. And fortunately, we do not have to go very far. On the left there, you can see that's where we're going to be going. So I'll bring up a little Navmap for you so you can see it. And the nice thing about little Navmap is you can see where you are on the and you can find your way around. Let's say they sent you to gate 72. You'd be able to at least find it with a little Navmap. So I'm just going to leave that like that, and you watch us pull in with a little Navmap. Just going to try and bring it in as accurately as I can. Okay. Little Navmap's in the way there a bit, but I'll be able to see that guy shortly. Okay, so there we go. I find they bring you in a little bit too close to these airport employees. So he's got to put his hands down. Oh, he wants us to go a little more. See, you think we'd be okay right here. There. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to press Control Delete to set the parking brake. Control Delete on my keyboard. I'll shut down the little Navmap. See, we're in pretty good there. So go outside and have a look. See how we pulled in. Okay, so there's our parking spot. So there is a auxiliary power truck there. But you wouldn't be able to get fuel here, I don't believe. You'd have to go over to the fuel station for this aircraft. And I got a little tug there. So we're going to shut this down. So Control 5. So I'm going to shut off the fuel and make sure the throttles are on full idle. Go Control 8, and I am going to shut off these lights and turn these down, get them back to where they were. Okay, Control 1. Alright, there's the avionics master. Control 4. So I'm going to shut these lights off. So I may forget something, but I'm going to put a checklist up for you so you can see everything that you should be doing. So once you, there's the battery and the avionics, turn down the avionics. Sometimes if your settings are set up, this will happen, but you can hit continue to allow you to keep on shutting stuff down. But that's pretty much it. So this is basically to get the aircraft set up for the next flight crew. Well, I think this thing's back in the center, cross feed. This switch here, if it was armed for an emergency, you could then shut it off. So you'd have to fill out a report on the weather and also probably on that engine, so it gets repaired. We tell the owner, sorry, you're going to have to spend $400,000 on your left engine. So that doesn't happen to another flight crew. So thank you very much for joining me. That was a lot of fun seeing how that was going to work. And if you liked it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. So Beautiful day here in Chicago. Real time, real weather. And nicely rendered airport. I like how they have the socks here blowing, and you could see that the weather information is pretty accurate. So thank you very much. Catch you next time, Flight Simmers.